In history, many people were born with noble titles and the right to command subjects and armies, but few have achieved true greatness, becoming legends whose names are perpetuated over the centuries. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of the most powerful men in the world. He had a complex personality and extraordinary willpower. He wanted to conquer a rich empire and make France the most important country in the world. Despite being an extremely important figure in French history, Napoleon's family was of Italian origin. His father's name was Carlo Maria Bonaparte, a descendant of a noble lineage that lived in the Tuscany region of Italy. His mother was Maria Letizia Ramolino, an austere and courageous woman who married only at the age of 14. She had a large offspring of 12 children, playing an influential role in Napoleon's upbringing and education. Christened as Napoleone di Bonaparte, he was born on August 15, 1769, in the city of Ajaccio, Corsica, an island that belonged to Italian rule but was annexed by France in 1768. At the age of 9, his family sent him to the French mainland, where Napoleon began his studies in a religious school. Shortly thereafter, he was transferred on a scholarship to a military academy in Brion-le-Château. For much of his youth, Napoleon was mocked by his peers because of his birthplace, short stature, manners, and his French with the typical Corsican accent. But Napoleon's short stature is a legend. This fame was created by English propagandists who intended to demoralize Napoleon's image on his rise to power. Although as a young man he was considered short for his age, as an adult, Napoleon was about 1.69 meters tall, a height considered normal by the standards of the time. Napoleon completed his studies at the famous Parisian École Militaire, becoming an artillery officer and the first Corsican student to achieve this feat. With the French Revolution in 1789, tensions between France and Corsica increased considerably, and Napoleon quickly returned to his hometown. By the age of 23, Napoleon participated in military uprisings, showing himself to be a fervent Corsican nationalist and defending his homeland's ideals of independence. His main mentor was the patriot Pasquale Paoli. The relationship between Napoleon and Paoli was troubled, as the latter considered Napoleon's late father a traitor after abandoning the cause of Corsican independence. The political differences between the two were growing, with Napoleon getting closer and closer to French revolutionary ideals. As a result of this estrangement, Napoleon was hampered during a French attack, which succeeded in invading Sardinia in 1792. He received confusing orders during the battle, being forced to retreat and abandoning his precious cannons on the battlefield. The orders originated from an officer chosen by Paoli. Napoleon's family became the target of political persecution in Corsica, which resulted in an attack on the Bonaparte home, destroyed by arsonists. Napoleon and his relatives fled Corsica for mainland France, where they settled in Toulon. This episode deeply hurt Napoleon, who began to harbor a grudge against Corsica and its inhabitants. This also caused him to definitely change his baptismal name at the age of 27, altering Napoleone di Bonaparte to the French version of the name, the famous Napoleon Bonaparte. Around 1792, France was in a very delicate situation. Several European powers such as the United Kingdom, Austria, Prussia, and Italy were at war with France. Meanwhile, the French Revolution was destabilizing the entire monarchical structure that governed the country. As the French Revolution took on new political overtones, civil war spread across France, with various political factions. In this chaos, Napoleon took part in a military action alongside the government, taking on some rebel towns in the French South. In 1793, Napoleon published a pro-republican pamphlet defending the ideas of the revolution. The strong words written by Napoleon eventually caught the attention of Maximilien Robespierre, the main leader of the Jacobin Party. Robespierre is famous for having been one of the most iconic and controversial rulers in history. His ideals of equality, liberty, and fraternity were in stark contrast to the rule of terror that he implemented in France. His radicalism fueled anti-democratic actions, persecutions, and assassinations of opponents. The rapprochement to Robespierre was quite beneficial to Napoleon, who became part of French politics, acquiring more and more influence in state affairs. During the siege of Toulon in 1793, Napoleon was appointed artillery commander of the Republican forces. His role was extremely important during the conflict, as he designed a plan to capture a hill where the Republican guns would be able to dominate the city's harbor, forcing the British and Spanish ships to retreat. The victory against the Anglo-Spanish troops, in addition to the capture of Toulon, caused Napoleon to become a brigadier general at the age of 24. A few months later, Napoleon was sent to command the troops on the border with Italy during the First Coalition War. Napoleon laid out the plans to attack the Kingdom of Sardinia, leading the French army to achieve victory at the Battle of Saorgio, April 1794. Napoleon and his troops fought further battles in the Alpes-Maritimes region, subduing other enemy towns and villages. But a twist of fate caught Napoleon by surprise, as the Jacobin leader Robespierre was arrested for his abuses of authority. He was guillotined in public on July 28, 1794. Robespierre's death and the rise of a new government triggered political persecution in France. Napoleon came under investigation for his association with the Jacobins. He was put under house arrest in Nice, on the southeastern coast of France. To escape this situation, Napoleon wrote a letter where he defended the legitimacy of his actions and good intentions for the future of France. He was acquitted of all charges and released on August 20th, 1794. During 1795, Napoleon's life went through several changes. He began his engagement to the young Désirée Claret, a passion that inspired him to write a romantic novella entitled Clisson et Eugénie, about a soldier and his mistress in a clear parallel between Napoleon and Désirée. But if his love life was going well, the same was not true for his military career. On September 15th, Napoleon was removed from his post as general. His pay was suspended for refusing to serve in the Vendée campaign. He faced a difficult financial situation and diminished career prospects. Napoleon regained some of his social status on October 3rd, when the monarchists in Paris revolted against the National Convention. Napoleon was charged with commanding the forces to defend the Tuileries Palace, a task he accomplished with great efficiency. Napoleon's success suddenly gave him fame, wealth, and the patronage of the new government. Napoleon's new rise was also marked by a new romance with the beautiful Josephine de Beauharnais. Napoleon fell madly in love with Josephine, ending his relationship with Désirée by letter. Napoleon and Josephine's marriage took place on March 9, 1796. Just 2 days after the wedding, Napoleon left for a new military campaign in Italy. Highly superstitious, Napoleon believed that he was guided by a lucky star, which shone especially for him in the sky, manifesting itself in his life through his wife Josephine. Napoleon's beliefs made him increasingly confident and fearless, quickly advancing his troops on Italian soil, achieving many consecutive victories. In just 2 weeks, the Kingdom of Sardinia was subdued, and northern Italy came under French rule. There remained the Austrians in Napoleon's way, but even the numerous armies of the Holy Roman Empire did not stop the French. During this period, Napoleon began to become internationally famous. His name was exalted throughout France. The top military leaders of other countries feared his rapid rise, but not even Napoleon Bonaparte could have imagined how great his story would become.